So this is the start line of Gesamtstrecke and of course the Südschleife as well. Now on the right hand side there, what you can see is what is now the Grand Prix pit building. So we're essentially on the modern day pit straight. On the left you would see Mercedes-Benz World and the roller coasters and all that kind of stuff. There's nothing there at the moment other than a few friendly people ready to watch some 1970s action. Speaking of 1970s action, I'm going to be driving this BMW M1 Pro car, which didn't come about until 1978, but I feel will be very, very well suited to a circuit like this in period. It's going to be absolutely mega. So what I'm going to do is drive around nice and slowly, if I can actually find my gear stick. There we go. First of all, just take the south loop nice and slow, just to give you an idea of how it looks, what it's all about, and how it links to the modern day circuit as you know today. And then for the Nordschleife section, I'll be able to push a little bit more, because obviously I actually know that track. So this is going to be very interesting indeed. We head down the main straight. Now obviously normally you'd be going right here into a tight hairpin and into the Grand Prix section, but instead we're going to be taking a left turn. So it looks a little bit like the Nordschleife's first corner, to be honest, but of course it's a completely different part of the circuit, so that can be quite deceiving. You then head down the hill. If you were to turn right there, you would loop round and rejoin the Südschleife, which I'll talk about a little bit later on, under the bridge. And essentially, we've unlocked the Nordschleife Part 2. This is something I have been so excited to try ever since I knew about this road, knew about this circuit. There's not much footage around, so you've kind of had to go on theory and the odd little bit, but it's so nice to be able to actually experience what this layout looked like through the trees. And as you can see, I mean, it's already got camber, undulation, danger everywhere. Now we are racing at 7 AM, so that's why the mist is lying nice and low through the trees. AMS2 looking amazing in VR as always. Now I don't want to push this BMW too hard because I don't yet know the layout, of course. But we'll get a feel for what it's going to be like when we get up to speed. I think this is going to be absolutely mega. Absolutely mega. Now racing did take place on the combined layout up until the 1930s. But then the south loop and the north loop were obviously well established, and then the racing kind of split into two sections. So you did have racing on both, but there was definitely more racing going on in the Nordschleife. I keep going to say Southschleife, I can't speak. The Südschleife was much more of a kind of almost like the forgotten sibling. There was racing on it, but not quite as much, not as prestigious series, of course. The Grand Prix took place on the Nordschleife. And then in 1971, which is when this version took place, the racing got even less on the South Loop. Basically at this stage there was barely anything, just the odd club event and rare race, and then by the 1980s a lot of the track had to be removed or destroyed to make way for the Grand Prix layout. So even though a lot of these roads do still exist, it looks very, very different, and it's all broken up by the new Grand Prix section. So this is basically our key to unlocking history and giving it a go, which we would never have the chance to do if it wasn't for sim racing. So thank you Rising Studios and AMS2 for providing us with this. This section of track, as you will see, not as long as the Nordschleife. Looks like we've got a tight hairpin here. And we are already getting close to returning to the bit that we all know and love. So it's a bit more closer to the Grand Prix layout in terms of distance. So here we are, under the bridge. Now just to give you some context, this actually looks like the run onto the Grand Prix pit straight that you'd be used to, but actually what we're doing now is going up the Grand Prix pit straight in reverse. So essentially if we were to turn right at turn 1 instead of left, the bit I talked about earlier, we'd rejoin this road here. Now on the right hand side we're going to be going past the pit buildings from the other side, so we're essentially running now down the back of the circuit. And then turn 1 of this section is going to be essentially the last corner of the Grand Prix layout, but in reverse, if that makes any sense. So now we're going to be going left. This is an awesome banked corner. If we wanted to just do the Südschleife, we could turn right here and then just do that loop over and over again. But instead we're going to go left over this bridge, and suddenly things are going to become very familiar, because this, of course, is Sabine Schmidt's curve, turn 1 of the Nordschleife.